Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, River family and friends. This is a special presentation and really excited. So, for most of you, you know that we have an African American event tomorrow at the River. It will not be on live, it will be in person. And so, tonight we decided to interview the person that will be doing that presentation. So, join me in welcoming. I'll have him introduce himself, but join me in welcoming Chuck Penn to the stage. So I'm going to bring him to the stage.
Right.
Chuck, how you doing? How you doing? So this is
Just fine. I've been working my tail off for seems like forever trying to prepare for this presentation tomorrow.
awesome, awesome. Well, Chuck, tell the people um, who you are. Like, who are you? Give us a little rundown on who you are.
Well, I'm a retiree, recent retiree, and I've been a history, I would say a history aficionado for quite some time now. I've had the opportunity in the past to interview probably four of the African world's most iconic scholars, that being Dr. Molefi Asante, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Yosef Ben Yekinen, and Dr. Ali Mazrui. And it goes back to the mid 90s when I created this public television series, and a lot of it was focused on our history. So I've been a history buff for a long time, and I'm a proponent of history, of African heritage people, uh, digging in and learning our history. And unfortunately, particularly with it being Black History Month, the focus is generally on a history that is from slavery through the Emancipation era. And of course, we've got a lot of heroes and sheroes that came through that era that paved the way for us. But our history didn't begin in slavery. In fact, slavery interrupted our history. It is not what our history is. Our history goes back to the very beginnings of time as the original people on earth, the original people to populate the earth, the original people to develop all of the basic skills of animal husbandry, on the metallurgy, and then getting into the sciences, mathematics, medicine, architecture, astrology, astronomy, you name it. When you talk about Africa, you're talking about the first, and we are the first. And we've got a long and storied history that we don't know about. And there's a reason
Okay.
why we don't know about it.
Okay, okay. So in all of that, so just want to welcome. We're streaming on two platforms. We are on Facebook and we are on YouTube. And for those that want to share this broadcast out, please go ahead and share this out. As we said, this event is tomorrow at the River, 3950 Juanita Avenue. So for those of you that have not registered. Please stop by, come by, because as in his introduction, he's already started with giving us such a wealth of information. So Chuck, just I am going to, as I ask you, why would someone want to come to this tomorrow? And also, as you were speaking on that, as you started explaining to us about African American history, which I will agree with you that usually African American history with Black History Month, we can read off the names and the different people that we hear about. Not that they are not great people, they have been great people for our history. But as you said, our history starts way before that. So give the people why they should come, who this is for, and also a little bit of history on that.
Okay. I think it's for everyone. I mean, I want to invite young and old to come. Why should you come? It's a very good reason why you should come. We are taught within our system, within the context of the history of Europeans. From the time that we get in school, we learn European history. Our history, in terms of being in the Western Hemisphere, begins with Greece and Rome. But the world was not waiting on Greece and Rome to civilize them. In fact, and I don't want to get too much into my presentation, but if you come tomorrow, you're going to find out who civilized who. It's important that we know who we are. I think that, and I think there's a lot of scholars that would agree with me that we suffer from a loss of historical memory. African Americans and African people across the board, wherever they may reside, suffer from this loss of historical memory simply because of what we've been through in terms of the 1,400 years of Arab slavery on into hundreds of years of even worse chattel slavery by the Europeans and taken away from our land and our history. Our history is a reclamation project. It's like a puzzle, and the pieces are being put together by our scholars. And so long as we are educated under the systems that we are educated under, we're never going to know our history because they're not going to teach us in school. Another good reason why is our current governor here in Florida, as well as 20 other states that are joining in or getting in the way of authentic history being taught in our schools. And so while we are taxpayers and our tax dollars undergird the public school system, and we should put everything into our fight to make sure that our kids do learn our history and about our heritage. In the final analysis, it's up to us to know it ourselves and to teach our young people our history. So if you come tomorrow, I can almost guarantee you're going to hear some information that you've never heard before. And I view myself as a conduit. I am not a historian. I'm not an expert. I've just been in the presence of and consumed a lot of information from people like Dr. John Henry Clark, like Dr. Yosef Ben-Yakin, like Ali Mazrui, like John G. Jackson. We've had some historic, iconic scholars that have put in the work. The problem is that it's the kind of information that we got to go get. And we're not going to get it through the educational system, even though we have to fight them to get that information in. So if you come tomorrow, I guarantee you're going to walk away knowing a lot more than what you did. And it really, the onus is on us for us to know our history, because we cannot teach our young people our history if we don't know it ourselves.
Absolutely. You know, what all I picked up in that is the word systems, right? Systems, and there's an acronym for systems, is saving yourself some time, energy, and money. So systems is very important, right? Because as you mentioned, all the different systems. And then you mentioned the authentic history. Authenticity is so important as no matter what culture you may fit into, authenticity is so important. So I picked up on that. And then you said that it is for everyone. And in terms of learning and teaching and knowing exactly who has come before you and what has happened before you. So thank you so much for that. And also mentioning that, you know, just because it wasn't taught in school doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And sometimes we may think, well, I didn't learn that in school, so then that means it doesn't exist. No, just because you don't know about it, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So, so Chuck said, thank you so much for that. Is there anything else that you can share with our audience? Because we do have an audience here with us tonight, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. As we said, this is really impromptu, but we wanted to get the word out and get the message out as to why someone will come to an African American presentation. And if you listen to what Chuck said, there's a great distinction that it did not start after slavery. That's really the great distinction. So, is there anything else you want to share?
Well, it's a secular, a secular presentation. It's not biblically based. We're going to stay in our lane and strictly worldly knowledge, if you will. But, you know, it's information that we need to know. And I would say that for those of us that are Christians that come, some of the information will require you to put on your discernment, okay? to be able to kind of read between the lines. And, you know, I would liken it to if you go over to somebody's house for dinner and they've got fried chicken and collard greens and macaroni and cheese and ribs and all that. And, you know, everybody's making all over the food while you're there. And then when you leave and you say, well, you know, that chicken was out of sight. And, you know, I just thought them greens was a little bit too sweet. You know, in other words, you consume and digest that which is palatable to you, and you leave what isn't on the plate. So, you know, because the reason why I say that is sometimes when you start getting into history and you start delving into science, it can conflict with your belief system. And you just have to be a discerning person and take what's there for you. There's enough information that is verifiable, that's documentable, that has substance to it, that you can walk away and know a lot more about the contributions of your people. African heritage people have a history that is second to none. I mean, second to none in every aspect. We have distinguished ourselves, and unfortunately, we're viewed as being on the bottom rung of the human family. But our history speaks a whole new different language. But the problem is, again, the way we're taught in our system is that everything begins with Greece and Rome. And of course, Africa was already old. I mean, old before there was a Greece, before there was a Rome. So hopefully you'll leave there tomorrow and you'll have a much more, I have my hands up because it's kind of signifying the timeline of history. The timeline is huge, and you'll know exactly within that timeline that little smidgen of history that speaks to enslavement. We have a vast history that we don't know about, most of us. And I've been fortunate enough to be in the presence of some folks that spent their careers learning that history, and I've learned some of it from them. So hopefully I can spread some of that knowledge tomorrow. So please come.
Awesome. Well, we have Belinda who says that she plans to attend tomorrow's gathering, and she is excited to hear about our rich history. And that's what, that's really what we wanted to do tonight, just the night before, to just remind folks that one, if you have not registered, I think the links may be closed for registration, but still show up. If you haven't spread the word, please spread the word. And if you have already secured your spot, just like Belinda, just get excited about being there. Because what I love with your visual, with your hands, is that you said slavery was just a little smidgen, just a smidgen. And I think that alone is so important to remember, because that little smidgen is what sometimes gets blown up, right? So I love that visual that you had. So as we get ready to wrap up, because we weren't going to be here long, just give the people just a little taste of what to expect, and to spread the word to remind them of this. And we also hoping that this will not be the last time that we will do something like this. So anything else that you would like to share, leave with them as we get ready to
I
close?
want people to come, so
Yeah, we're not gonna give them the movie. We're just gonna give them a little quick commercial. We're not giving them the movie. No, we're not, because we want them to come.
Learn about the first doctor in history. His name was Imhotep, and he goes back to around 1700 BC. In fact, we'll break down that whole BC AD, BCE, BP category. We'll talk about categories of evidence. One of the things that I really want to stress is that I see a lot of young brothers and sisters on social media. They're really into ancient African history, ancient Egyptian history, and all that. But many of them run with stuff that doesn't have the academic muster that it should have. And so we'll learn about the different categories of evidence. It's important that when we make an assertion about our history, that we got the evidence to back it up. And so I really kind of orient towards scholars that practice that form of study, and that is it's evidence-based. as the expression goes, it's all about the evidence, baby. And so we've got the evidence. And that's the reason why, if we know that information and we have the evidence, then we can stand up to anybody who would try to contest what it is that we have to say. So we're going to cover the whole gamut. I'm only really going to get into mainly ancient history. I know the graphics and everything and on social media says African American history. It's really not African American history. It's African heritage history, because we're going to focus in on the ancient civilizations, and primarily the Egyptian one. Well, I'll touch a little bit more on some of the other ones as well. So please come out. You won't regret it. I've got so much information. I'm going to try to get through all of it in a PowerPoint presentation that I put together, and hopefully you'll get something out of it, and you'll think it was worth your time on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely. African heritage presentation. So if we have any comments, I don't see any other comments of anyone that may have a question for Chuck, but here's what I'm gonna tell you. Save your questions for tomorrow. Come out with your questions. And here's the other thing, right? So come out with an open mind. Come out with an open mind. Come with a cup to receive. For those that are part of the river, that we believe in growth. So those that are part of the river that have registered, we know you're going to come with an open mind. Come with an open mind. Come with an empty cup, so that you can be poured into and filled. And so for those that are not a part of the river, we would love to see you come out. And prayerfully, you will leave fulfilled. So, Chuck, I think we've given the people enough for them to know exactly what to expect tomorrow, and just to come eager and ready. Without any further ado, do you have anything else that you?
Well, I think you laid it out so beautifully, the way you just expressed that. That was very eloquent. And it's the approach that I took when I interviewed scholars. In fact, I just interviewed 2 more scholars. I'll put a little snippet in a couple little video clips you'll see tomorrow. Just interviewed a brother from the UK, Robin Walker. He wrote this book. I don't have it in front of me. He wrote this book, When We Rule. It's about 800, almost 900 pages. I interviewed him last Sunday, and prior to that, within a week, I interviewed another professor by the name of Amenu Amkem. And all of these scholars that I interviewed, when I interviewed them, if you watch the videos of the interview, you'll notice that I asked a question, and then you can hear from me until I asked another question. I came with a teachable spirit. And that's, I think, is what you were saying. Come with a teachable spirit. I have so much material that I want to get through. I'm going to ask everyone to hold off on their questions until I can get through the material. Otherwise, you're going to get me. You can see that I'm chatty. I'll never get through all that material if you get to ask me questions. But at a certain point, I will take some questions, though.
Awesome. This is, everything is such a blessing, and this is such a blessing that you have such a passion for this, that you are still interviewing scholars. And I see that your poster in the back of you, that looks like what, probably about 50 scholars right there.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's who's who, I think, of African American scholars. There was one brother that I'll talk about tomorrow who's from Senegal, Cheikh Anta Diop, probably the greatest African heritage scholar in the 20th century. I mean, his brother was absolutely brilliant. I think he had like 7 degrees.
Wow.
And he took on the world's most noted and learned archaeologists and anthropologists and ethnologists, all those ologists, back in 1974, I believe it was, at the UNESCO conference, where they were talking about the peopling of ancient Egypt. And he came with his friend, a brother by the name of Theophila Obenga, who's still alive. Unfortunately, Dr. Diop passed away in 1986. But he left them spellbound with their mouths open, because his categories of evidence were so deep and so comprehensive that none of the 18 or so other folks that were there could contest what he said. So yeah, that poster there has a whole lot of our iconic scholars on it, and I'm going to be bringing a lot of my books and going over some of the books that people want to know. Okay, where can I get up to speed about our history? I'll have those books with me, and I'll go through some of those books in the presentation.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, if you weren't excited before, I hope you are now. I hope that you are gonna make some phone calls after we get off of this live, and you're gonna pack your car up with some people and tell some people and some young people too, right? Tell some young people to come along to learn about that who's who board that he has in back of him. So, Chuck, thank you so much for
My
agreeing to do
pleasure.
this and
You
for
can
us
tell it's a
to be
labor
able
of
to.
love. I love it. I mean, this is who I am and who I have been. I mean, I did my stint in corporate America, you know, trying to bring home the bacon and all that sort of thing. But this has been near and dear to my heart the whole time. So this is a part of who I am. So
And we are blessed that you have this incredible passion to share that with us. So for everyone that has joined us tonight, thank you so much for taking this time out for jumping on this impromptu. It was not something scheduled. It was not all over social media. So thank you for joining us tonight. And as I said, if you were not excited before, hopefully you are. You can pick up one or two people with you and join in the presentation tomorrow. So Chuck, thank you so much. Have an incredible night and good night to everyone.
all right. See you tomorrow.